We're in.
Okay, so this week, Darren, you gave me the privilege of putting you in the hot seat and asking you a few questions and letting the people know who you are, who are the Epiphany people, what do the Epiphany people do, and what kind of change you want to see going forward. So, for those of you who don't know me, I think I did one of Darren's first lives. I think it was his second or his third one that I did. So my name's Matthew Popo. I am the CEO and founder of an organization called We Think. We Think is a think tank that develops youth work engagement practices and training. And we also do advocacy work, mentoring work, and we develop toolkits for those who are very interested in youth work and how to apply best practice in youth work in multiple environments. I'm also the CEO and principal of Symphony Schools, which will be a Black-led organisation that will sell free tuition for young Black boys in their GCSE years, so that we can get them the best possible academic futures going forward. So that's just me, because this isn't about me, but for those of you who want to know who's this person who's able to ask Darren questions, we are friends, more importantly. He's my friend, he's my brother in arms, he's my brother in practice. And that's why we are here today, why I want to be asking him these questions and, you know, keeping him on his toes. So, a few house rules, and the only house rule is, we won't be taking questions today from the comments, but feel free to put the comments in, because it's something for Darren to reflect on and even myself to reflect on going forward. We are going to keep the live to 1 hour. We're not going to go over the hour. We're just going to keep it, you know, nice and compact and keep it to the hour. And if you do have any questions, if you do have anything you want to pose to Darren or even to me for whatever reason that it may be, because this is all about Darren, then please feel free after the live to get in contact with him personally via his DMs, or if you have his number, give him a call, and he will answer any of your extra questions then. Which is that we've got a lot to get through, and I don't think we can get through a back and forth question period today. So, Darren, who is Darren? And more importantly, what is or who are the Epiphany people?
Boy, who am I? Who am I? So, I am Darren LAVILLE. I am a father of 5 sons, grandfather of 2, and founder of the Epiphany people. So in terms of that, that's pretty much it in a nutshell. But for me, as a practitioner, I have about 20 years of experience of working with children and families in residential, youth offending team, alcohol counselling, antisocial behaviour, parent support. So that's pretty much my experience. In terms of the organisation, it was 2016. 2016 was a bit of a crazy year for me. Where in March 2016, my own son was killed due to youth violence. And for me, at that moment, I pretty much knew that I couldn't walk with hate in my heart, because it would consume me and it would consume those around me. So I very much became an advocate of love. And anybody who met me around that time, they would always say love, bless, love, 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 love. And it was always the thing that I thought I had to radiate, because you know, in terms of energy, we're very, 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 very sensitive to these sort of things when it comes to trauma and that sort of stuff. So later that year, October 2016, there was a young man that I was looking after in the residential care system, who was out on county lines, and he got murdered down in Gloucestershire. And that, I'm going to tell you, no word of a lie, that mashed me up. I knew in 2016, from that moment, I knew things had to be kind of different, and I had to do things differently. I couldn't work the way I used to work. The work that I was doing just didn't make sense no more. And, you know, when people talk about this pain to purpose, it became a reality, and it actually manifested itself into the Epiphany people.
Right. Can I ask
So
you, so before we go further, can I ask you, how did you get to the name Epiphany People? What was it that said to you, I'm going to call my work, my organization, the Epiphany People? I want to give the people a real insight into the way you think and the way and your thought processes with your work. So how did you get to the Epiphany People?
so if we look at the logo, yeah, it's an eye, right? It's for me, I asked for an eye. It was about the third eye. It was about the awakening. It was about realizing that there was some real deficits within the community and in practice where I was working in terms of knowledge of what was actually going on for young people out there. So there were all the signs of like criminal exploitation for the young man that I was looking after. But we didn't know it as that. And it was extremely difficult. So as much as we can see there were certain things that were happening, maybe with due to the lack of knowledge, risk, we believe, wasn't managed properly. So I felt that it was literally one morning, I knew I wanted a name, and I woke up and I was just like, wow, the Epiphany People, Epiphany. I woke up with literally an epiphany.
Okay.
And that was it. And I knew from the Epiphany People, it can't just be me. I'm talking about building an army of people, yeah? So for me, everybody that's jumped on the live, yeah, with me over the last 3 months is an Epiphany People, is an Epiphany person. Each one of the 840 odd followers are Epiphany People. Each one of those families that we work with and support are Epiphany People. And it's about building a movement of understanding of what's actually going on, because what I realized is there was a real deficit in understanding what was going on for young people at that time and still present.
So in the beginning, when you put together the idea of the Epiphany People and you wanted to make it about your practice, what was your original thoughts on, or what was your original ideas around how you would do your work? What was your work going to be focused on? So for example, I mentioned earlier on, I've got 2 different things that I'm doing. One of them is about youth work practice and development of and upskilling practitioners, and the other one's the more educational side. So what was it with the Epiphany People you were trying to achieve?
For me, it was one about awareness and one about trauma support. So in terms of awareness, it was about, okay, this is what is happening, guys. Wake up, smell the coffee, yeah, get aware, because if we're forewarned, we're forearmed, you know, as the strapline says, for the Epiphany People, is know better, do better. From when we know what's going on, we can respond differently.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? And from when we know what's going on, we can understand that actually that perhaps that old school way of parenting needs to be slightly adjusted. Sometimes we need to try a more of a restorative approach, especially when we're looking at stuff around criminal exploitation cases. It's been a process that's taken place for young people. So it's about parents understanding that. Do you know what I mean?
So as we push forward and we look at, who the Epiphany People are, what the Epiphany People do, from my own research, from conversations that we've had, you decided to go down the route of arming parents.
Yes.
Now, this is something that I've got, it's close to my heart, because my day job, as you already know, is that I'm a head of year, I'm a pastoral manager at a secondary school. So I know firsthand that, when we see children and we see them behave a certain way, a lot of the time, children are a reflection of how they're parented. So you decided to go down the route of, I want to educate, support, and upskill parents, which is a requirement. It's necessary. How did you land on, or what made you say to yourself, let's go for the parents? Because most people want to do youth work, they automatically want to go straight to the young people. They want to go straight for the young people. They want to try and be this champion for all young people, this scenario where they come in and save all these children, and they miss out a vital entity within the work. And that entity normally is the people that they already have in their lives that they look at as examples, or people that have in their life they look at peer groups. So what made you decide, you know what, as the Epiphany People, the target audience that we want to go for right now are the parents? How did you get there?
Brother, to be honest, it was my own personal journey, both personal and professional. So in terms of, looking at my role as a carer and my role as a parent, it was about looking at, okay, you know what, honestly, when you're going through that grieving process, you are looking at, you start looking at guilt, You start looking at shame. You start looking at what you could have done differently. You start looking at these sort of things. For me, that was crucial, and it was really quite critical. But for the parents, I noticed that there seemed to be a lot of intervention, and in terms of well, there is more intervention. I'm not saying that there was a lot. There's more intervention, and in terms of the support for parents, it was very difficult, because when we're looking at the sort of incidences that parents may have been dealing with in terms of criminal exploitation, we're talking about their kids going missing with no contact. Yeah, we're talking about their kids being beaten up. We're talking about their kids being caught with knives or fearful to go outside, right? We're talking about an anxiety the minute they walk out the door. We're talking about all these sorts of traumas that parents are going through. We're talking about their children being locked up, right? This is all traumatic experiences for parents. So for me, it was about from recognizing that actually sometimes, you know what, the way statutory services are developed, they don't really allow you to sometimes practice and respond like the way is sometimes required. So it's, you know, from doing my academic studies as well, what I've realized is as a youth worker, in terms of youth work in theory, when you're learning, is very different compared to youth work in actual practice. Do you know what I mean? What you're taught as a social worker is very different in terms of what is expected. So you can't be your genuine self. So when parents meet me, they're meeting me as you hear me talking.
Right.
There's no difference. You know what I mean? I am down to earth. I am not the perfect parent, but I'm learning. I'm on a journey. And do you know what? There's some stuff that we learn and that we can share collectively and build upon. So it was very important for me in terms of building that movement that way.
In regards to, I'm going to bring up a topic or a point, and it's about relevancy. And the reason why I say this is because you decided to enter a work or enter a space where the work can't be done if you're irrelevant to the people you're trying to engage. So when you said, I'm going to go for the parents and I want to talk to the parents about certain things, in regards to getting the people to understand who you are as a person, because it's important that we have to ask these questions. What qualifies you to do this work? What qualifies you to say to yourself, I've been through this, or I know this, so I now want to teach people, or I want to support people to do such and such? Because there are a lot of people who, and I'm not digging at anyone in particular, but there are a lot of people who do work in the community or do work in different systems. But I would argue, and it's been said to me by multiple different people, young people and parents, that those people didn't understand them. Those people couldn't get where they were coming from. Those people were not relevant in their lives to make a difference. What makes you relevant in this work, in the work that you've chosen to do? Where does your relevancy come from?
Oh, brother. So we're talking about a model, right, that as an organization we work to, and it's actually called the PALE model, which stands for professional, academic, and lived experience, right? So professionally, as an individual, I'm currently doing my master's in youth and community development.
Well done, congratulations.
All right. So prior to that, this is all part of my journey, all right, admittedly. And prior to that, I went back and entered into education and did my level 3 youth violence and gangs course, because I needed to understand what was really going on for the young people. Yeah, you know what I mean. So in terms of that's professional, academic. In terms of professional, we're talking 20 years of experiences in different sort of environments for young people and understanding. And I've always been that guy that tends to end up working with what's deemed as a hard to reach, what's deemed as the most difficult places to work. Put this way, they're all, you know, in terms of working residential care, I always end up working in the most chaotic, most craziest houses. Yeah. And it all and more for me, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And then we talk about lived experience. My lived experience is my lived experience. You know, it is what it is. I've gone through it. It's who feels it, who feels it knows it. You know, when we're talking about in terms of relevancy and everything else, when parents or when somebody is going through trauma, they are hypersensitive to energy. They are hypersensitive to people's energy. So if their energy's off key, right, they can sense it. So one thing I can say is that my energy, I've done a lot of work on my energy and making sure that we are, you know, about all heart. So as I've been popping the music and adverts, you know, it really is a case of doing it for the love, doing it for the passion, doing it for the purpose, yeah, and not for the likes and not for the hype and not for the money. Do you understand me, Matt? So this is very important, purposeful work.
Yeah. I mean, I have been speaking to you now on and off for, should we say 2 years, on and off?
Yes.
And I think properly for the past, I say 3 to 6 months, we've been talking on a very regular basis. And what I get from you is this yearning that I don't know if you'll ever, you know, you'll ever quench the thirst for the work, in the sense of there's always more you want to do.
Yes.
Now, what you don't know, we've never spoke about before, is that in 2016, when unfortunately your son was taken from this world, I was coaching football, and a player on my team, I believe, was related to you and your son. And he popped up to me today in my head. He just came to me today, and I was sitting down thinking about this conversation. And I remember he came to football, and he was just he's a broken young man, and he just wasn't the same for weeks. And it was the ripple effect of how one act and one loss to the world makes a massive difference to the lives of so many different people. And even me going through certain things when that happened, it was like, how do I engage this young man who seems to have disengaged from the world because of what happened to this young man? Now, that didn't even happen to me. That happened to you. That was your child. That was your son. When you decided to start a parenting group, and your parenting group was all about supporting parents through loss, supporting parents through lack of understanding, supporting parents through or supporting parents full stop. There's so many things you support parents through. How do you manage to use your lived experience, but not use your lived experience to personalize the issues of other people? Because within our work, we still have to be professional. We still have to be objective at times. We still have to be useful. But it's not many people that can say they've gone through what you've gone through. How have you managed to still be impactful? How have you managed to still be successful? How have you managed to still be useful to parents, even though you might come across situations that are just like what you've gone through, and you can't project your pain onto other people? You can't project your life on other people, but you know you still have to be useful. How have you used your lived experience without letting it consume you?
Brother, it's been a journey, because it's been a real journey. It's been a journey of self-awareness, right? Self-awareness is the key to not, admitting transference. Yeah, that's what stops counter-transference. Self-awareness, right? So from understanding yourself, yeah, and understanding where your positionality is in this situation, you are able to do that. And a whole lot of self-care, a whole lot of self-care, brother. Do you know what I mean? Which is absolutely key. But at the same time, Matt, you know, when we talk about relevancy, right, there's something in the power of being upfront in terms of stating my positionality with families. Yeah, it's one of the things I do from the get-go. I let them know who I am and what my experience is, right? Because you know what it's like. The minute you share a little bit with a person, people tend to share and feel more comfortable in sharing. And it's the power of vulnerability. Yeah, it's the power of vulnerability. And it's been a journey of understanding how to harness and develop that vulnerability without it being harmful to yourself. Do you know what I mean? So it's still work in progress. It's still work in progress, but I'm doing good. I'm doing good.
In regards to your parenting groups, something that you mentioned earlier on that you focused on going forward is this whole idea of this issue of supporting parents through criminal exploitation of our young people, and how it impacts not only the young people themselves but also the families. And what people sometimes don't realize about this ripple effect is one child can undertake one issue or one circumstance, and that will affect their brothers, their sisters, their cousins, their friends, their parents, their grandparents, their aunts, their uncles. Because whether people remember or not, or take it in or not, we live in networks, we live in clusters and communities where one person's actions has a ripple effect on everybody else. So when we look at criminal exploitation of our young people and the parents that you support, let's talk a bit deeper about that. and how the Epiphany people supports these parents, because a big part of your parenting groups is supporting parents with their young people. So how does the Epiphany people support parents with their young people, especially when it comes to young people who are at risk of harm or any kind of exploitation?
So first thing is about creating a safe space. Now there's a lot of talk about safe space, right? But from my research and my understanding, and having been sat in safe spaces where it's been facilitated, safe space comes from the person who's facilitating that. It's not even the physical space. Safe space comes from the individual who's facilitating that. All right. So, and when we talk about, so it's about that safety to be able to speak freely.
Yeah.
Right. And our safety is a massive point when we're talking about trauma, right? And from when you create that safe space, you can then start working on the other barriers that are there in terms of working with families. So when we're talking about issues of blame and issues of shame, they can be worked on.
We're gonna get to that. We're gonna get there, but keep going.
Yeah. So so when we look at that, what was key was one, having the right people working with me. All right. Two, having an understanding for what's really going on for young people and the sort of issues. Three, I say, you know what? Definitely no judgment, and feeling comfortable that they can speak and talk, and just having a place where they could talk, because unfortunately with cases of with families who are experiencing and living with criminal exploitation, it's not an isolated situation, but it's an isolating experience. So when I talk about an isolating experience, often families don't feel that they can speak to even their own family members.
Right.
Yeah. Families feel that they can't go to their traditional support networks, which sometimes may be their mosques, maybe their churches, right, for fear of judgment. All right. Because often what tends to happen is the issue of parent blaming. Right. Yeah. So and how we work with parents around that is about getting them to understand the social construct of what's created this situation. So for me, when people talk about systemic youth violence, right, I look at it as the systemic, right, the systemic criminal exploitation is systemic in itself. All right, because when we look at what's happened and what's really happened, certainly in you know, since the Tories have been in power, we're talking about cuts to the youth services. We're talking about longer waits for mental health services. We're talking about the school to prison pipeline. We're talking about more young people taking drugs. We're talking about the increasing use of social media and the lack of understanding that parents may have around social media, and the impact that it can cause around youth violence and criminal exploitation. We're talking about how media narratives such as you know, how they will paint the picture of there being more cases of youth violence within the Black community. And when you check out the statistics, it tells you something completely different.
So, so once you've created this safe space, once you've outlined certain things systematically and how our young people get involved in the system and certain things that will go wrong for them, what is it that the Epiphany people put in place to then further support these parents? I know, for example, you set up stuff like a telephone helpline. You've tried your hardest to get rid of certain barriers to success, which whether that be stuff like the blame and shame and ideas of that hue. Can you explain a bit deeper into what it is that the Epiphany people apply or give to people, the kind of support you offer in regards to what you can give to these parents?
Okay, so in terms of the process of understanding, we have for the last 2 months, we've been working in partnership with UCB, University College Birmingham, and we've been holding a monthly parenting group. Now,
Okay.
it took some time to get this group going. Now, anybody who's ever run parenting groups, they understand that, you know what, in all honesty, I think for the first 2-3 months, we had no shows, all right? No shows, but we kept it going, because it was bigger than that. And, you know, through networking and stuff, we actually started to have more referrals from social service area offices in Birmingham, and they were therefore referring in. But what we found was actually the parents that started to attend the group had actually already they've already hit crisis. So their child has been arrested. They're under the youth offending team orders. So there's no avoiding it. So and they've also had some intervention from social services. And as their intervention has come to an end, because a lot of the time with these interventions, they only tend to last, say, 2-3 months, and then quick program, and then they need an exit strategy. So we've pretty much become that exit strategy.
So is it fair to say then that Epiphany people, for a lot of people, you're providing aftercare after the system has given whatever support or fails to give whatever support? The Epiphany people allows themselves to be used as a hub or a supportive place or a haven where people can go and receive that kind of support, that kind of advice, advocacy and care that they're possibly not getting from the system. And to that point, we know that the system is not necessarily built for us.
Yes.
And when I say us, I do mean the marginalized, I do mean the ethnic minorities, I do mean people from low income houses and societies and environments. So when we look at the Epiphany people and the people that the Epiphany people engages, where do you find your cultural relevance? Because I think that for the work you do and the research I've done into the work you do, you are working with people from marginalized backgrounds, you are working with people from low income environments. So what is it that gives you cultural relevancy with these people?
Upbringing, where you've grown up, and the fact that we're staying humble, you know, and grounded. So so for me, when we look at that, it's and just being open and honest and holding your identity, because there's this whole thing about professional identity, which I've been doing a lot of research around. And do you know what? Being myself, simple as being myself. Yes, I am a father. Yes, I'm not a perfect parent. Yes, we've gone through certain experiences. Yes, I can understand where you're coming from. And yes, we can relate. That's the cultural capital that's actually needed. And you know, for the last 3 months in terms of lives, what the common theme seems to be popping up a lot of the time seems to be around representation, right? But it's more than representation. It's about that understanding. And the parents do feel that they do receive that, hence why they keep returning month after month, week after week, and the phone keeps ringing.
I think where the Epiphany people can find a space, and I think where you have found a space, is this whole idea of getting parents to truly understand the systems and the parameters that their children are currently working in. As we know, you mentioned earlier on about the school to prison pipeline and things of the sort. We know that one of the major factors for young people entering into the system, whether that be the criminal justice system or even into the care system, is a breakdown in the home. And we all know that when you have a breakdown in the home, that most of the children, or at least they say up to 34% of children who are in custody at the moment or in the criminal justice system, come from the care system. So you can see already the importance of parenthood and where things can go really right for you early on because of the way you've parented your children and the things you afforded to them, or where things can go really wrong. And I think this is where the Epiphany people find its space because of the support that you provide for these parents. If a parent was to walk into the Epiphany people, for example, and they said to you, Darren, I feel like my child is up to no good. I feel like my child is hanging around with certain people that's going to get him or her in trouble. They've gone home, they've come home from school at 8, 9 o'clock in the evening, and they're at school at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. You know, they're going out all hours. One time I didn't see my son or my daughter for 2, 3 days, and all it was just phone calls. How do you respond to these kind of parents? Because this is the work you're doing. So how do you respond to these kind of parents when they're saying to you, basically, I am losing control of my child?
Do you know what, Matt? Before I answer that question, I also want to talk about the parents for a second. Now, sometimes I have to tell you, there are some really, really good parents, right, who are still living with criminal exploitation, right? And that's because the beast is bigger than their parenting.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree. The beast and the battle that they're fighting is bigger than the parenting. So that's why I'm straight up the parents' defender. Do you know what I mean? The parents' defender say, well, actually, let's have a look at this practically and see what's going on. So that's when we start looking at, when getting into conversation with the parents, we're looking at, okay, let's start looking at what point. When there's changes, I always like to look at the catalyst, what actually happened. Yeah. Now, for some parents, for example, one parent, we found that there was a difference after their child got into a fight. So when their child got into a fight and caused some serious damage from one punch, so that kid became a banger. Yeah. Within the area, and people knew about that. So as a result, some of the elders in the area started to see what was going on. So it's about understanding, one, the catalyst for change, right? And for them to also understand what are the sort of things. So what I try and get them to look at also is around what I like to call covert parenting. All right. So covert parenting sounds sneaky, but do you know what? It's parenting. It's about understanding, right, the language, looking at the behaviors. So say, for instance, if you're a parent and you, for all of a sudden, your partner starts walking out the room when the phone rings. Every minute, their phone's popping off and pinging. Yeah. They're going missing and they're not telling you, or they're just, it's just allowed. It's different. You know what I mean? So what is acceptable and what those changes are. So it's definitely about being on it. But then also, I think in terms of early intervention, it's about making sure that for parents that listen, there clearly does seem to be something going on, right? But understand that if you have your real suspicions around this, that this has been a process that's happened. It's no child really wants to be doing road. That's my firm belief. All right. Yeah. Most children really don't want to be doing road. Most of the big man them out that are doing road, they don't really want to be doing road either. If you're able to get into a deep conversation with them, they don't want to do it. All right. So what are the motivators? What are the things that are happening for them? Why is it that they're doing that? Why is it that they're going missing? But it's also about understanding what conversations need to take place. So, it's beyond, from when I was a child, the conversations was pretty much around birds and the bees. And that was pretty much it. There's a whole heap of different types of conversations we need to have with our children's now. So I'll be asking them about, has your relationship changed with them? All right. Do you feel like you can still connect and talk with them? Is there anybody else within the family that you feel can connect with them? Because usually there's always one person, an older cousin or an auntie, a younger auntie or uncle that can connect. All right. Who is it around you that you can support? Who are your support networks? Who are your support networks? Boy, for some parents, I've spoken to some mothers who haven't told the child's father, all right, because they believe that they're not interested or they're not involved. But you know what? Most cases, if the father knew or other family members knew, they will often step up into position.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's about looking at about your support networks. I also look at in terms of is there anything you feel you can do differently? You know what I mean? So in terms of when they're returning back from going missing, right? How do you respond now as as somebody who's worked in children's homes, I would have had training on how to respond to when young people go missing. Do you understand me? So I would have had a day's training. So I'm telling parents, look, what do we need to do when we return back from missing? It's like, all right then, look, these are the sort of things we might need to consider. You might want to consider, listen, calm down before you talk to them. Yeah. Don't go all guns blazing, because that ain't going to work. No screw face, because screw face doesn't do it again. It doesn't make it. All right. Picking your moment and sometimes actually being vulnerable with your child. All right. So speaking to your child and saying, listen, son, I was worried. You do not realize how much I have worried. I was being threatened. I haven't slept. Everybody's been ringing, asking what's been happening. You know, what's going on? What's going on? And it's a softer voice. It's the making the favorite dinner. It's about creating the family environment. And do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So what I'm getting is basically you give them arguably you can create a pro forma that you can go through with your parents and within your groups as, say, you know, signs or signals of change, how we intercede within those changes and how we put things in place going forward.
Yes.
But as we both know, you can do all those things. You can put all these things in place, but there is always a barrier to success with these things. And whether it be, once again, lack of communication, whether it be, you know, you come from a single parent household, so you work a lot and they're at home by themselves, whether it be a breakdown in family communication, someone put in the group in a comment that in the live that sometimes those networks just don't exist for whatever reason. And it's true, they don't always exist. And we both know this firsthand. What would you say is the biggest, if not a couple of the biggest barriers to succeeding and having positive outcomes with these parents and young people?
In terms of dealing with child criminal exploitation?
In regards to dealing with criminal exploitation and just general misfortunes in, like, just out there in general. It could be anything. It could be a parent who's just struggling to have a conversation, a parent who you feel like they're losing their child every single day to outside interest. What are the biggest barriers to you being successful when you engage them? Or what are the biggest barriers that any kind of practitioner will have working with parents, especially when parents are struggling with their children? What would you say that the biggest barriers are?
Sometimes if the parent just straight up ain't feeling you, if the parent ain't feeling you, you're not getting nowhere.
Yeah.
Right? Also, when we're looking at issues around shame and blame, that also gets in the way. Also, when we're talking about entering in a system which we know isn't built for us and is oppressive, so you know what? We're not talking.
Yeah.
When we're looking at also in terms of silence and the wall of silence with parents, right? We've also got to consider that parents feel that, you know, they also got to protect their child. And that's a priority, is protecting my child. You know what? If I can't say nothing too tough what's really going on, because you know what? It might put my other children at risk. Yeah. You understand me? And it may not just put your other children at risk, it questions your parenting, because unfortunately the minute your child is involved in these sort of networks and these sort of behaviors, or is deemed to be, right, you are now entering into the child protection social service system, and you're entering into the criminal justice system. So really it's about how parents navigate that and understand how to navigate that.
I think to further elaborate on your point, once again, in my day job and in community work, what I found, even with some amazing parents, we have to put it out there. I think a lot of people think when they see a bad child, it's because they come from a bad home. It's not true. It's not the truth at all. You'll find a lot of children who are on absolute antics, and they got the most loving parents and guardians you could think of. But for whatever reason, whether it be environment, social media, peer groups, trauma, any kind of educational needs, we have some children who come from lovely homes and they still end up in really poor, negative situations. And those parents, I find, are the hardest to engage because they're upset. You know, they're broken. They're asking questions like, we've done this, we've done this, we've done this, we've got them these things, we've taken them to these places, we've given them these experiences. And then what happens, I find, with a lot of parents, is to become very defensive. Yes. And because they get very defensive, they become a barrier to their own success. And so one thing I found with my work is that and I'm sure we spoke about this before as well, is that actually one of the biggest barriers to succeeding within our community is people not wanting to be transparent, people not wanting to be honest, people not wanting to say to them, it's not going to say, put their hand up and say, do you know what? I'm struggling. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm out of my depth here. The world has changed so much that I don't know how to engage my children. I don't know what he or she sees. I don't know what it is that's in, but I am struggling. And they lie to protect their children. They omit certain information to protect their children. You know, we've had parents, we see them in the Birmingham Mail, face planted, criminal pictures, lying in court, lying in systems to protect their children, not realize that they're going to have detrimental effects going forward because you're not helping them, you're only advocating them and giving them basically you're unconsciously giving them permission to carry on with these behaviors. And it can be a big issue. In regards to the Epiphany people and the work that you do, and I know that you do this work from our conversations going back up until now, how do we engage parents? I've got a rough idea, but I want to hear your answer. How do we engage a parent who's willing to lie for their child, who's willing to lie about their own skills, lie about their own struggles, lie about how deeply troubled or how much they're struggling with their children, and like the conversation, without sending out the wrong messages, because they need our support and they need our objectivity probably more than anybody else, more than any other kind of parent. So how do you do that?
Do you know what, to be honest, Matt, it's a simple case of one asking how are you? No, seriously, how are you? Because this is very stressful. This is very challenging. This is how, this will impact on your health. How's this impacting on the rest of the members in your family? And taking it away from them for a second. And I say, listen, I can understand, you're as a parent, I can't wrong you. Yeah, as a parent, your primary role is to protect your child. Nobody wants to see their child locked up. Yeah, and even in terms of the way parenting has changed nowadays, right? Going back 20 years ago, yeah, if a youth was going on with their badness, there would have been, you know what, you have to come out my house. Yeah, you need to go and live in supported accommodation into a hostel, right? Parents aren't doing that no more, and I can't wrong them. I can't wrong them for not doing it neither, because the reality is they know if they're sending them to those sort of establishments, they're sending them to the belly of the beast, right? So at the same time, when they are trying to protect their child because they know what the outcomes are, right? The outcomes possibly could be death, yeah, or prison. You know what I mean? So it's again taking away the blame from the situation and understanding what it is, and it's again about trust, yeah, with ourselves. 100% about trust. And this is when I go back to energy. Our recruitment is key in terms of who we have, yeah, working and sat in front of a parent. You know what I mean? So that's how we do it, and it's a process. It's a process of trust.
The last thing I want to cover before we get to a point of where we begin to conclude is this whole idea of community relationships. In all the time I've worked with different types of people, I've been able to do a lot because I've built certain relationships with certain people that have allowed me access to certain parents or children. So, for example, I get phone calls a lot from certain people saying to me, "Can you phone so and so and get me a sit down with so and so I can deal with this problem? Can you get me a number, or can you mediate between this group of people and this group of people, because I am struggling here with my child, my son and my daughter, and I don't want it to escalate." Where I think it's important that we build these spaces where people can go, I think the real importance lies within the relationships that we can build within our communities so that we can do the work. Because if we don't have the relationships, we can't do the work, because no one doesn't trust us. No one doesn't come through our doors. No one doesn't talk to us. Nobody wants to say anything to us because they're scared that if they say something to us that they want to remain private, we're going to take it somewhere else. I think that we have to maintain these relationships with also honest practice. You know, for example, if they say something that they shouldn't say that may cause harm to somebody else or is criminal, you know, you have to warn them. If you say certain things to me, I might have to say it to somebody else. But it's about that transparency and honesty. And I think this is where the Epiphany people finds its place because of those community relationships, because of those community bonds. And I think if you're going to continue to do what you're doing, if I ask you now to give the people who are in this live, I don't know, one idea or two ideas, two pearls of wisdom on how you build those relationships, what would those little gems be so that the work can be done?
So the relationships in terms of networking, yes. So it's all about, it's again, the foundation of any relationship is trust. Yeah. The foundation of any relationship is trust, and also positionality. For me, it's about who's best placed, to do what, who is best placed to do what, So who has the expertise in what, who is currently doing what, and you know what, in terms of, and that relationship can be passed on, because if you've got a relationship, right, in terms of, you've got a relationship with a parent, Matthew, and they believe and trust you, you could pass on that relationship. It can be done, and it has been done.
Yeah,
that's the key. But sometimes what we find is, as practitioners, right, not only we tend to gatekeep what's actually happening, we tend to gatekeep our cases, we tend to gatekeep the parents and keep it to ourselves, instead of looking at, okay, listen, perhaps, you know, that person's best place is signposting. It's straight up signposting, but actually having your own network to signpost to.
I think there's a couple of comments people have put in, obviously the biggest one being honesty and transparency, positionality and visibility, big points to be made. But once again, I encourage anyone who's in this live, who's interested in doing the work as well. There's nothing wrong with going to someone who knows a bit more than you and having a conversation with them about how you can do the work. CPD is massive. I think sometimes we get into this work and we work with young people and we just feel like we don't have to learn from anybody else. And the reality is actually we become better because we learn from other people.
Absolutely.
Because we go to people who have been around a bit longer than we are, meeting parents and children where they are, instead of trying to go out there and be everything to everybody and impose yourself on people. You go outside and you meet people where they are, and you be understanding about who these people are and how they feel and the kind of help they're looking for. Because I think one thing I really like about what the Epiphany people does is it caters to what people need in regards to, instead of what you want to give to people. Do you understand? So it's like, there are so many people who are like, oh yeah, I want to do this, I want to do that. We offer this, we offer that. What if the people you engage don't want that? What if that's not what you're about? So that's where the signposting thing comes into play, where we look at how we can best support certain people. And I think also be mindful of your platform and your environment. I think where the Epiphany people works really well and it's quite strong is that your mantra, it doesn't sway. You set your stall out and this is what we are and this is what we do and this is what we're here for. Yes. And I think people believe in that because you continue to promote the same messages. And once again, it's about consistency, honesty, transparency, positionality, all those words that we've already seen in the live. It's about all those things. And this is where the Epiphany people finds its strength. And I think, you know, we spoke about it before, and it's something you can speak about when we conclude, because we're going to wrap it up in a minute, about how we can get the Epiphany people to have a larger reach, how we can get the Epiphany people to more families, how we can get the Epiphany people to be a group or an organization within not only this community, but other communities where people can, you know what, look at the work the Epiphany people are doing. How do we replicate? How do we go to them and speak to them and we learn from what the Epiphany people are doing? So before we finish, just once again, tell the people who probably came in a bit later, you know, what is the Epiphany people? What do you hope to achieve long term? And how do you want to position and place yourself going forward in regards to the work that you want to undertake?
So it's for the people, straight up for the people, and it is about us being seen, visible, and relevant. So if I'll be truthful with you, beginning of the year, I was not about IG. I was not about putting my face out there. I was not that guy. Yeah. And it was Craig. Yeah. and it was KC, right? Two of my brothers, right, who says, look, Darren, people don't know who you are, right? You need to get out there and be seen. You need to be, and it was also Sister Joan Campbell who says you need to be visible, present, and relevant. All right. Now, that is what I'm talking about. Those are the key things. So in terms of each single week being on IG Live, right, we have been talking about what is relevant, what is necessary, what is needed, and it's become organic. Yeah. So in terms of sharing, yes, we do need to spread the message. Yes, I have been begging followers because it is a passion. It's a passion. I am begging followers. I am telling you to go and share, right? Because the message needs to be known.
No pride in it. No pride in it.
No, I'm begging followers. Yeah. I'm begging followers, not for the likes, for the love, because it's a passion. This is what my life is. It's as simple as that. And it's about the Epiphany people is about creating informative healing spaces, whether it's online as it's become of late, and whether it's on the community, whether it's on the phone, and on other online platforms, as it will be developing over the months, as God willing, you will see.
Lovely, Darren. I'm gonna give you a high five from here. For those of you who aren't as familiar with Darren's work as you need to be, please make sure after this live, if you come in a bit late, Darren will save it. He'll put it on his page. Go back and watch the whole thing. The Epiphany People is an organisation that I hope, as we go forward, to continue to work quite closely with, whether it be through WeThink, whether it be through Symphony Schools, whether it just be me, just coming out, supporting what the Epiphany People is doing. Darren, I believe in the work you do. I believe in you, and I do believe that you can make a big difference in the lives of not only the parents but their children and the community that choose to engage with the work that you're doing. Once again, you got me on live for the first time during lockdown, and even me being here now doing this for you, hosting this live and asking you questions, there's not many people I can count on one hand who could have got me to do this. So understand how much I truly believe in your work. You're a champion of parents, you're a champion of young people, and I only hope and pray that your work continues to grow and that people truly understand what you're about and the work that you're putting in behind the scenes, because you've got a lot of people in lives listening to conversations that they wouldn't have been able to listen to had it not been for you pushing for certain people to come on these lives. So from the bottom of my heart, Darren, I appreciate you. I appreciate everything you've done so far and everything you will do going forward. And it's been great. It's been great as always. And thank you for letting me do this for you as well.
Appreciate it, bro.
So to everyone who's here, I hope you got what you needed to get from this live. I hope that, if you didn't know, if whatever you don't know, you've learned a bit more. Continue to follow Darren's work and what he's doing. You can follow my work if you want to, but Darren's the focus right now. So continue to follow Darren's work. He's a great man with a great vision. God bless you all and have a great evening.
Thank you, guys. Love you all. Thank you. Thank you.